Disney and princesses have become almost synonymous. Not only has the studio made princess animated movies their bread and butter, but they have created a whole line of merchandise and media surrounding the Disney princesses. Disney princesses are everywhere and are a huge presence in the Disney parks around the globe. The point is, Disney and princesses have a very close relationship. At times, it is those princesses that have transformed or even saved the company, 4 times in particular. In this video, I'm going to take a look at 4 different princess animated features and show how they just may be some of the most important films in the Disney animated canon. First of all is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The importance of this film is fairly obvious to most. Released in 1937, Snow White was the first full-length animated movie. Most did not think Walt could release a long-form theatrical cartoon. Some even speculated that watching animation for more than a few minutes could cause physical harm to the body. Without a doubt, this film was a game changer. Not only was it spectacularly done, but the film was a massive success, becoming the highest-grossing film of 1937 and earning Walt Disney many awards, including an Oscar. The importance of this movie really goes without speaking. If this film had failed like many of Disney's contemporaries predicted it would, who knows what the world of animation and film would look like today? The Princess movie became a template for not just Disney but other studios as well. It would become a familiar formula that Disney would use, tweak, and even subvert in the decades to come. After the initial success of Snow White, Disney's subsequent features of Pinocchio and Fantasia both failed financially, leaving the studio in trouble. They needed money and they needed to make cheaper features. With the U.S. entering World War II, the company got both. The U.S. government commissioned the Disney studio to make good neighbor policy films geared toward appealing to Latin America, with Saludos Amigos and The Three Caballeros. The war affected the studio in other ways. The whole country entered wartime production, and this was no different for the Disney studio. Not only was some of their equipment used to aid the war effort, but Disney was tasked with producing propaganda cartoons. Many of the staff was also pulled away, as some animators went off to fight in the war. During this time, the only features produced were fairly cheap packaged films, like Make Mine Music and The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. But, with the war ending in 1945, Disney was now free to create a narrative film again. Walt wanted the company to go back to their roots and make another fairy tale. This time, it was Cinderella, which was released in 1950. Like Snow White, the film was a huge success at the box office, and ushered the animation studio into a nearly decade-long winning streak, with other animated films turning a sizable profit. Cinderella put Disney back on top. Things suddenly changed, however, when Walt Disney passed away on December 15, 1966, leaving the animation studio virtually in an existential crisis, and it showed in their work, with much of their subsequent films taking a hit both critically and financially. Things came to a head when 1985's The Black Cauldron completely bombed at the box office. Disney's animated output was as sparse as ever, and things were not looking good for the studio. After the failure of The Black Cauldron, the animation studio was exiled off the main Burbank lot. Things looked grim and their future was uncertain. However, thanks to the massive success of 1988's Who Framed Roger Rabbit, people were beginning to take interest in animation again. Disney saw this as an opportunity and once again went back to their roots. 1989's The Little Mermaid was a resounding success, and like Cinderella before it, it not only saved the animation studio, but it ushered in an era of great success. The Disney Renaissance, spanning roughly from 1989 to 1999, remains one of Disney's most defining eras, and a very important time in the history of animation as a whole, as Disney's success allowed for the rise of other animation studios, namely Pixar and DreamWorks. By the early 2000s, both Pixar and DreamWorks had huge hits using CG animation. Disney continued to push out traditionally animated work while suffering through huge budget cuts and layoffs, making more films with smaller budgets in an era of diminishing interest in traditional animation. By the mid-2000s, Disney was essentially playing catch-up and finally decided to make the switch to CG animation for 2005's Chicken Little. The movie was a minor hit at the box office, but it remains one of Disney's worst features. Pixar, who had partnered with Disney, was the pioneer in CG animation and producing huge successes one after the other. During this period, Pixar was seriously considering not renewing their partnership with Disney, but instead, Disney bought Pixar for nearly $7.5 billion, putting Pixar head and former Disney animator John Lasseter in charge of Disney Animation. Almost immediately, there was a change in the animation studio. Not only did the name change, but with Lasseter at the helm, the very atmosphere changed as well. It became much more creatively conducive, allowing the animators to stress story and character more than they had previously been able to do. Once again, to fully mark their reinvigoration, the studio decided to return to its roots. 2009's The Princess and the Frog was a return to form. Not only was it a fairy tale princess musical, but it was a return to traditional animation, something that Disney had not produced since 2004's Home on the Range. While the movie wasn't a huge success, it was popular enough to signify to the public that the studio was back. Following The Princess and the Frog, the studio only met more success with 2010's Tangled, 2012's Wreck-It Ralph, 2014's Big Hero 6, 2016's Zootopia and Moana, and especially with 2013's Frozen, which remains the studio's highest-grossing film to date. With 2018's Gigantic and Wreck-It Ralph 2, the studio doesn't show any signs of slowing down. Disney princess movies are arguably the most important movies in the Disney animated canon. With these 4 examples alone, we have seen that on more than one occasion it was these movies that literally saved the studio from collapse. It's clear that though the Disney princess movies have changed in look and feel, it will continue to bring the studio massive success. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next week with a brand new video.
First of all is Pocahontas. Now, Pocahontas, I really don't make any secret that it's my least favorite movie of the Disney Renaissance, and it's also my least favorite princess movie. To me, there's some really good, awesome parts to it. The animation is gorgeous.